My name is Javier Munoz, and this is the What Brings You Here podcast, where we spotlight remarkable people changing the world one epic project at a time. And today we have something real special for you. Have you ever snapped a photo of your delicious meal at a restaurant? Well, my guest today turned that very simple act into a movement that has provided more than 2.3 million meals to hungry families across America. The following is an interview with Andrew Glantz, the creator and founder of GiftAMeal, the app that turns your food photos into real meals for people in need. Thank you, Andrew, for making this interview. It's wonderful and an honor to be able to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Well, the purpose of this is basically to highlight the journey of people young as yourself doing projects that are what I call epic projects, high impact, high purpose projects. And mostly I am interested in the early beginnings, the start, the seeds that really spark the motivation to do this. And so my first question to you would be, what was something, an event or something that happened in your early life that created this spark to go for this project that you created?
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't just one specific thing. It was, a lot of different areas of my life kind of came together for the founding of Gift-A-Meal. I mean, I've always kind of been entrepreneurial, but I never really identified as an entrepreneur. So whether it was, selling origami out of my pencil box when I was in first grade, or,
Yeah.
uh, doing little side hustles and everything, or things like that. But I never really identified myself as an entrepreneur. And then I'd always believed in giving back to local communities, and I would volunteer as a tutor to teach underprivileged children how to read. And I would do that with my mom when I was in elementary school to teach kids a few years younger than me, and that was something really meaningful to me. And when I was in high school, I served as a camp counselor for a camp for underprivileged children called Camp Harmony, where they could have a week sleepaway camp to have kind of all the fun and food that they could want. And I was a camp counselor for 5 and 6 year olds. And so, they're very cute and fun, but it was also really hard to hear about stories of hunger from the perspective of a 5 or 6 year old. And so that was something really impactful for me in terms of a cause that I wanted to really tackle with hunger. Um, and so then when I was at a venture capital internship, when I was in college, the managing partner exposed me to the idea of a profits with a purpose business model and doing well while doing good, and how those incentives could align. And I really liked that idea of a scalable for profit business that can make an impact. And so I was on a lunch break with the other intern, and we were talking about how millennials like ourselves want to support brands that give back. And with restaurants, there were a lot of financial incentives like coupons and discounts, but not a lot building that emotional connection with the brand. And so I pulled from a Tom's Shoes buy one, give one model, and the trend of people posting photos of food on social media. And I combined it into one, tapping into the network of existing food banks, where each time a guest takes a photo from a partner restaurant, we make a donation to a local food bank to provide a meal to someone in need. So put my savings into it and started it up.
Wow. So that's incredible. If you can recall a time early on when you started, which probably was tough because you had to show the restaurants that this was a viable idea. And I'm always curious about the moment where you have clarity and conviction about what you're doing and you have a vision, but you have to communicate that and create enough credibility on someone, for them to back you up. And so it's like very evident now what you're doing after you've done it, that this
Yeah.
makes sense. But I'm always curious about that moment where you're creating the critical mass, right? The critical mass, the validation of the model. And that's when I think a lot of entrepreneurs and people working for causes like yours give up. They give up at some point because they get a lot of rejection, or it's just hard to really convey the vision when no one has done it before. But
Mhm.
so I am curious about basically your mindset. How were you at the time where you were going out there? You didn't have a car, I believe, and it was hard, for you to sell the idea. And how did it feel when you got the first one? So, that's what I want to explore, your state of being, basically, how you were overcoming these challenges, how were you coming back home after a negative or many negatives. How did you wake up early in the morning to go back to it, and where did you get your energy to do this, your conviction to pull through?
Yeah, I mean, reaching critical mass and gaining validation as an early stage startup is elusive. And like you said, rejection is common. And so being comfortable with rejection and knowing that entrepreneurship is a journey, it's not an end, there's not just one end goal or one end milestone. Uh, and it's all about just kind of continually de risking your startup and gaining more and more credibility. So for me in those early days, I was like you said, I didn't have a car. I was walking up and down the street in the snow to mom and pop restaurants, and I just got no after no after no. It was really challenging, it was one of those things where the first restaurants I got on board for Gift a Meal, I got not by pitching them to join, but was asking them for advice. So I would go in and I would ask them for advice. I would get their advice. And then since they gave me advice, they wanted me to succeed because then in part it'd be due to them succeeding and because they liked me. And so I was developing that relationship where then I said, hey, thank you so much. As a thank you for all of your advice, I'd like to offer you a 6-month free trial of Gift a Meal. So that way, as a thank you and for you to be an early adopter.
Oh.
And so that helped me get the first restaurants on board for free. So we wouldn't make any money from it. But we would have these restaurants that would give me advice and they would also give me a positive testimonial that so I could then take those quotes, put them on a slide deck, and then show them to other restaurants that were their neighbors to try to convince them to join. And then I emailed out to the local media press releases about our launch and everything. And then got some free earned media publicity. And so that helped establish credibility when I could say, hey, look, we were covered on the local Fox 2 News station. And here's a quote from the owner of Three Kings Public House and the owner of Pastaria. And so then I go to another restaurant, they could see, okay, this guy's legit. These are restaurants that I know and respect. These are media publications that I respect. And so then that helped me to get those first ones on board. But it was a slog. Like it was really challenging, both in terms of like what it was in practice to get those initial restaurants signed up, but also mentally in order to kind of continually face that type of rejection. And, I could see the vision for it, but, everybody was kind of saying, oh, this is just a nice side project type of thing. Does this going to actually give value? Will restaurants want to join? Will people want to use the program? And so I just took doing it and just kind of pushing through and persevering in order to get through to the other side. And a lot of it, again, was just kind of asking people for help and building up relationships to get those early adopters.
Let me ask you, can you tell me the story of the first time you got a yes that was a paying yes, not one of those that were yeses because you were giving it for free?
Yeah. So it was a restaurant that was on the street, the Del Mar Loop, right by my college town. And it was at a restaurant called Blueberry Hill. And the owner doesn't have a cell phone and would deal either just no email address. And so it would just be like trying to go in person or mail and everything. And so it was really elusive to try to get a meeting with him. But he ended up being the first paying customer on Gift a Meal for Blueberry Hill, like a burger place. And it was just about meeting up in person and kind of aligning on a values perspective and, showcasing that, hey, we have like this audience of at the time like Wash U students for the college that I went to that we can help drive to your restaurant. You could be a differentiator and things like that.
Did you
And
did
yeah,
you feel that you were gonna get it? when you came in? Did you had
No,
like no? You were
no,
just going through the motions, doing what you know, presenting, and then
like
suddenly you were surprised.
well, it's a difference of not thinking that I was gonna get it and not being confident. I was confident going into the
Yes,
meeting, but I was confident going into every meeting, and I'd
exactly.
gotten so many no's, that, it's like, in sales, if
Mhm.
you close 1 out of 10, 90% of the time you fail, but if you close 1 out of 10, that could still be a success.
Right,
And so more likely than not, I was gonna fail in that meeting, but I was going in being confident because it's like I have nothing to lose at that point. It's like if I end up signing them up, then that's only a win. So it
hmm,
was going in confident and felt that we had a good conversation and everything, and then just did some follow ups and ended
yeah,
up signing them up. And once you get one, then you can try to get more. And but it really wasn't for another couple of years until we started to do some more case studies where we saw that the guests using GiftAMeal were returning 39% more frequently, spending 20% more per order, and tipping 32% more. And once we had those numbers, then we started to see more restaurants join because we can quantify the value. Before then, it was really just me saying, hey, we have 500 users that are WashU students. And if you want access to those students, then sign up for Gift a Meal because they'll see that you're involved and they'll go to visit your business. But there wasn't anything that was really tied to revenue to prove out our business case. So it was
right.
just a little bit more of a stretch for the sales pitch then.
That's brilliant because, I mean, you had a sense that there was going to be an advantage for the restaurants, but were you ever surprised by these results, these percentages that you just told me? Uh, I mean, that was the ultimate validation, not only because you're doing good
Yeah.
by operating or using your platform, but then you have these very pragmatic results from it. Were you do you have a sense of why this is happening? I understand, that the customers get connected with the restaurant in a more meaningful way because they know that they are part of the platform. But is there any other reason, maybe a deeper reason for these results that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of research from in consumer culture reports about Gen Z and millennials wanting to support brands that give back and that they're willing to pay a higher price at those brands. They're willing to choose them over competitors. They're willing to visit more frequently. They're more likely to share those businesses and recommend them to friends. So that research I'd seen existing. The question is, how do we tap into that in a way that's easy and engaging for guests at a restaurant? Where there's a lot of different calls to action. You're busy, you're hanging out with friends. So how do we have this be a positive experience and not something that gets in the way of the experience? Since Gift a Meal is free for the customer who's taking the photo and funded by the restaurant, the customer feels good about themselves because they're triggering the impact by the act of taking the photo. It wouldn't have happened without them taking the photo. But since it's funded by the restaurant, they're attributing this sense of gratitude to the brand. So the restaurant isn't asking the customer to give any
Mm,
money. It's free for the guest. They just take the photo. And so it takes them 15 seconds. They feel good about it and they feel grateful for the restaurant. And that creates a sense of emotional connection to the brand, where then it's driving this sense of loyalty. And I think also as a part of this too, it's just raising awareness about the brand's giving back. If the brand just has something up on their website on a social responsibility page, most customers aren't going to look at that page on their website.
exactly.
But since the customers are actively engaged in the process of the give back by taking the photo, they're all aware of what the restaurant's doing for their community and they feel good about that. So it's getting awareness and then bringing them into that feel good experience, establishing that sense of connection, and then encouraging those guests to share out those photos on social media with their friends in a positive way, effectively turning those customers into authentic micro influencers, where they're spreading these word of mouth, uplifting view of the restaurant to all their friends.
Mhm. So basically, if I were a customer, I go to this restaurant, a participating restaurant, I take a photo of my meal in
Mhm.
using your app. So I have to download your app, right?
Well, there's
As a
two ways that you
customer.
can participate. So you can either download the free GiftAMeal app where you can see all the list of participating restaurants, or a lot of our restaurants will have signage up like a table tent or a coaster or something on the menu with a QR code. And you can just scan the QR code and go through the process in 15 seconds with no app download or account creation required. So we created this appless version as well as a way to reduce friction, where if you just want the quick experience and you don't want to download an app, you don't need to. It could be the
Mhm.
quick scan and snap. And so when you scan the QR code, it opens GiftAMeal. You snap a photo of your food, drink, your friends, a selfie. One photo is one meal. And then you're invited to share that photo on your personal social media. And we give an extra meal for each platform you share on, since then you're promoting the restaurant to friends. So if you share on GiftAMeal on Instagram, it's 2 meals. GiftAMeal on Instagram, Facebook, and X would be up to 4 meals provided in that example. And so it's really easy for the guests to engage.
And so you have the ability to track where the customer is posting, basically, and
Yes.
this is how you can account for it. And obviously there are everyone wins. So then the meal itself, when it's gifted, how does it get to the people that are in danger of being hungry?
Mhm. So the food itself is already donated by supermarkets, food drives, food
Okay.
distributors, and stored in these food banks, big distribution facilities. And then
Oh.
where we come in is we make monetary donations to them for each photo taken to cover their distribution cost of getting the food from those big facilities to the hundreds of neighborhood pantries where those
Wow.
in need can access it. So when you take a picture of a burger, it's not like a burger's being donated from that restaurant because that'd be perishable.
Mhm.
Instead, it's a monetary donation to the food bank that helps get 1.2 pounds of food or 1 meal's worth of groceries from that facility to these pantries. So it's pantries, soup kitchen, shelters, and each of these different food banks have a meal metric of what their cost is, of how many meals they can distribute per dollar donated when they're distributing food in bulk in their trucks. So typically they'll have on their website for every dollar donated, they can distribute 4 meals to those in need, or 5 meals, or 3 meals. On average, 4 meals per dollar donated, or 25 cents per meal, is their distribution cost for that trucking, labor, refrigeration to get that donated those donated groceries from their facility to the pantry. So for each photo taken, 25 cents donated, funded by the restaurant paying a monthly program fee to be involved.
Wow. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And l- Andrew, you had this photo, this picture of this business model from the get-go, or did things start to just evolve and fall into place and converge into what you currently created?
There's lots of pivots along the way in
Okay.
entrepreneurship. I mean, initially I had an idea of like a restaurant recommendations feature in the app. We could refer restaurants to friends, and if they use your recommendations, you both get points that could be redeemed for cash, and then restaurants would pay per recommendation, and we would donate a portion to food banks. And then that didn't work. There wasn't enough of
Mhm.
an incentive there for the customers, and it was all delayed gratification, not instant. You had to wait for a friend to use
Mm.
your recommendation to get anything. So that failed. And then, was looking at focusing in on that take a photo to give a meal model where the food banks were directly involved. We experimented with lots of different features and different leaderboards and badges and different bells and whistles and all these different things. And, some things work and some things don't. And that's just the cycle of iteration in entrepreneurship. It's constantly building, testing, learning, and iterating in order to improve and figure out what customers actually want, and what they actually use. Because sometimes what they say they want is not what they actually do want to use in practice. And then it's also trying to figure out how can we deliver more value to restaurants.
Right.
So in terms of at the end of the gift meal experience, when the guest is feeling happiest, can we have that guest be prompted to join their email newsletter or loyalty program or write an online review for that business? Or how can we make the experience feel like a more native experience for that restaurant in terms of integrating gift a meal into the restaurant's own mobile app or at the end of the online ordering process? And so we've had a lot of these features where it's centered around our customer as the restaurant. They're the ones that pay to be involved in gift a meal. How can we deliver value to them, like in terms of making the gift meal experience in their brand's colors and identity, so the customers are giving the restaurant the credit for it, not necessarily gift a meal, but they see gift a meal as the restaurant's doing, not some
Mm.
extra. company. And so that's kind of the lens we look at when we're building new features: is how do we make a better customer experience for the restaurant guest? And then how are we going to provide more value to our partner restaurants in terms of their marketing ecosystem?
Making the restaurants the heroes, let's say, and beyond that, the customers themselves that go to the restaurants.
Yeah.
Instead of you, you would be like the orchestrator of the giving. But that's brilliant because
I mean, if the customers didn't take
mm,
the photos and the restaurants didn't sign to participate, no meals
mm,
would be gifted. So it
ex-
really is about the customers and the restaurants that are the real heroes at the end of the day, and we're the facilitators to help make this connection possible.
beautiful. Let me ask you, in Just Action, our program, we help people create their epic projects, such as yours. And what we have a concept which is called the Queen's Move. The Queen's Move is basically when you, through a profound insight, you take a bold move that changes the course of action. It could be a simple thing like picking up the phone, making a call, or out of intuition, saying something to a customer and proposing something that you had not thought about, but that works, Or maybe, a moment where you came across something that inspired you to do one of those pivots that you're telling me. Uh, I am very interested in the moments where you are shocked through the realization, oh my God, we should have done it this way, or this is now very clear. Because after everything that you've told me, I can see, the many iterations that had to come together for you to develop what you've developed up to this point. It's like a nicely oiled machine that has many parts that have their own motivations, yes, and that come together to deliver an impact in such a brilliant way and elegant way. So the thing is, how do you stay motivated, through each turn? And possibly it's because of these moments of light, as I call them, these moments where you make a move, you do this Queen's move, and it's like a bet that I'm gonna go this way, see what happens. It's a total departure. We've tried so many things, they didn't work. I'm gonna give this a try again. I wanted to hear a story of you facing that moment of, oh my God, I got it. Yes, I'm gonna make this move, see what happens.
Yeah, I think that there's multiple inflection points along the way in a startup. I mean, I mentioned the case studies earlier being one where we can quantify the value to the restaurant and that leading to more joining. Another was when we started to sign up some franchisees of restaurant chains that were local in St. Louis. And that helped us get some chain logos behind us because whenever we pitched chain restaurants, they would say no. They would say, you're too unproven, you're too small, you're only in St. Louis, you're not elsewhere. Will this work elsewhere? Will this work with a chain brand? And so going after franchisees of a brand could get us that brand logo and get us that validation, even though we're not signing up all the locations. And so we signed up a regional brand. We signed up to a franchisee and a corporate owned chain in the initial days with Andy's Frozen Custard, a franchisee that had some locations in St. Louis and a few in the Carolinas. And we also signed up Lion's Choice, a 30 location chain in St. Louis. And so having Lion's Choice with 30 locations showed, okay, we can handle a chain that's that size. And having Andy's Frozen Custard had us be able to say, hey, we can handle a chain that's multi state. And so then having those together allowed us to pitch these more national chains or chains that were based in other states in order to help with expansion. Because I tried and failed so many times to just expand city by city and like hiring part-time salespeople and interns in other cities to go door to door to mom and pop restaurants. And it was just grueling and it took so much time and energy. And it was really, really slow. And so figuring out that, hey, we can go after some of these chain brands that are in multiple states and everything, and we can pitch over Zoom outside of St. Louis, was something, and show that we could succeed there, was something really valuable. So I wish I would have gone after franchisees of brands a little bit earlier and tried to validate getting in the door with chains, get more case studies that were done earlier, and then also been more open to appless solutions earlier, because that really was a game changer for us when we went appless for just the QR code version. But that was also driven by technology because Apple created what's called an app clip, which is that appless experience. That's like a temporary app on your phone by scanning the QR code. And that didn't exist when I created GiftAMeal. So that wasn't really an option. So I could have tried to have GiftAMeal as like a web app that could open in Safari or Chrome on your phone without having a download required. And I think that would have removed some friction and had higher participation rates. But sometimes you just need the right timing and the right
Yeah.
technology in order to solve some key hurdles for your business as well.
Right. Excellent. Very interesting. So you founded this company in 2015. 10 years have gone by already. You still look very young. Oh my goodness. Um, what's next?
I mean, we just reached yesterday, actually, 2.5 million meals donated through Gift a Meal. And so that's a big milestone. And our goal is to keep on growing that number. We're donating over 40,000 meals a month, supporting 150 food banks in 44 states, DC, and Puerto Rico. And so, we want to be in all 50 states. We want to be in thousands of restaurants. We're in a little over 1,000 right now. And we want to be providing millions of meals to those in need annually. So, it's one of those things where, as non exciting as it might sound, our next stage is growth. It's just we have something that's working. How are we going to be able to best scale this up in terms of getting awareness of more restaurants about the Gift a Meal program, getting them to reach out, or us reaching out to them, pitching them, having them join the program, and be able to make a larger and larger impact. And who are the different companies that we can partner with in order to help us get there? And so we've started to work with some different companies in the food tech space that have relationships with restaurants and everything, and ones that we can do integration partnerships with, like having the Gift a Meal button in the restaurant's mobile app for the companies that build mobile apps for restaurants and loyalty programs and such. So yeah, it's just kind of keeping our heads down and focused in, and putting the foot on the gas to keep things growing.
Yeah. Exciting. Very exciting. So what would there is another concept we have in Just Action, which is called the out of the box thought. Uh, when we create these types of projects, we want to think of something that is out of the box, totally in the realm of the unreasonable. So,
Yeah.
and that's an stretching exercise, basically, to consider what would be something that is outside of the realm of feasibility. And it's hard sometimes because you as I see have a very clear idea of all the different moving parts and all the parameters and all the levers to growth. You have a good sense of what would be needed to really execute on that. But sometimes we also are restricted by those parameters that we have come to realize through experience that are there. But
Mhm.
then there is a possibility that maybe you are not seeing outside the box possibilities. Yes. So that's why we do this outside the box exercise. And my question to you would be, what is a very unreasonable outside the box possibility for you?
An unreasonable outside the box possibility for us. I mean, I think that there's a lot of areas that we could delve into with Gift a Meal outside of we're currently a single product offering company with the take a photo to give a meal concept. I think that there's other needs that we could help solve, and some of these are in partnerships with other companies. Some could be with us creating our own products in the future. For food insecurity in particular, I mean, there's great companies that do things on the food waste side of things. So if a restaurant has food waste, getting it to places that it can go so it doesn't go to waste and can help combat food insecurity. So there's areas there. There's loyalty programs and building out solutions. There's corporate social responsibility that's outside of just fighting hunger for other causes or for staff engagement and volunteer opportunities. There's a whole suite of marketing products for restaurants, whether it's email marketing, social media marketing, SMS marketing. There's online ordering, loyalty programs. So there's a lot of different areas that we could go into. The question is, uh, how do we not spread ourselves too thin when we have a limited team and limited time versus focusing in on a product that we know is working? And so that's where we're looking at partnerships with other companies that really
Mm,
excel and specialize in these different areas, where there could be potential cross selling opportunities where we help each other out in order to expand the scope of what we're able to accomplish. So
interesting.
there's definitely a lot there, and I think that as a founder, I try to not box myself in too much to just the same thing every day because it's what we know, and to still be open to innovation and new ideas. And the best idea can come from anyone, whether it's
Mm,
um, a colleague that I meet, or like in a first networking meeting, whether it's an intern, whether it's my CTO, whether it's another food tech founder. The best ideas can come from anywhere, and just kind of always staying open to being wrong and being open to innovation, I think is really important.
mm. Andrew, and have you thought or have you had anyone ask you for how you could do this internationally?
Yeah, I mean, we've been asked by some restaurants to join internationally in Mexico, Canada, even Australia. And we just had the reason that we haven't done it yet is just, again, not spreading ourselves too thin, and also the
Mm,
financial cost, and talking to our attorney and our accountant about, from a tax perspective, what are the implications of
mm,
operating internationally. And so I think that's definitely something on the roadmap. We would just need a critical mass of restaurants that would want to join in those areas in order to make it worth it for us to go operate in those markets.
mm. Well, for some reason, it comes to me that you could even franchise or think of a way of franchising your model. So you're de-risking that expansion internationally, but providing means to maybe people that have the same drive that you have, or the relationships that you know now are critical for this to have the critical mass, so that this model can expand and go to other places. I the reason is because sometimes you might have the idea that the United States is not necessarily the one with the highest food insecurity issues, in the world, although there are always millions of people in risk in every country, right?
Right.
And so those people also need solutions. But I'm thinking of other countries as well, where maybe in Latin America or other places where there could be an opportunity. Or by way of, and this is like sort of doing brainstorming with you, but through your partnerships with chains, as you develop them, those chains sometimes they have already presence in other countries, and maybe it is a matter of expanding that contract to other countries where that chain is operating, and have a stronghold already in one place. I'll give you an
Right.
example. Um, there is a very large fast food chain that operates in Egypt and is owned by a single person, right? It's not like there are not many franchisees. There is only one single franchisee for that uh, for that fast food chain. And so it's making a contract with one single entity would allow you to have penetration in one country for all the fast food restaurants that they have. And
Mhm.
thinking, like I'm listening to you saying the best and fastest way is to go and have expansion by way of signing contracts with large firms that already have the relationships, and instead of going door to door and trying
Yeah.
to do that. So I
Yeah.
suppose
It was
those are.
international. It would
Mhm,
have to be that route
mhm,
where it was like a single decision maker for like a 50 or an 100 location brand could help bring us into the market and give us like a 1 or 2 year commitment. So that way we make sure that it's worth our time and energy to expand to that market. So yeah, I think that that's definitely something that's feasible. I think it's just we need to kind of continue to grow and develop. But, we're always open to evaluating these types of opportunities as they come our way.
Andrew, my last question to you is, what is that you need at this point? What is something that you're looking to develop, or that you're asking for, that you would like um, to reach out and see whether you can get it? Is it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very kind to ask. I mean, I think that for me, it's really about connections to restaurant chains is the way that we're going to grow. And so, anybody that knows any executives or that work at restaurant chains, and even if it's a single location, mom and pop restaurant, those are still helpful. Send them to giftameal.com/partner. Or they can book a demo at giftameal.com/demo. And I'd be happy to walk them through a 15-minute demo of the program and see if their restaurants would be interested in being involved. And a lot of the times it's connections that people make out of the kindness of their heart to help us get in the door with these restaurants that really allow our expansion to be possible and to grow the level of impact that we're able to make for communities all over the country. So it always warms my heart when people go to restaurants and they are eating at the restaurant that's their favorite restaurant that they go to every week, and they like tell their the person taking their order about Gift a Meal. They ask if there's a manager there or owner so they can tell them about Gift a Meal and spread the word.
Mm.
And then either they make an intro for us to the restaurant, or the restaurant reaches out on our website. And it's just really heartwarming to see. And so if anybody has any connections to anybody in the restaurant industry, whether it's a mom and pop or a chain restaurant, anybody in restaurant marketing, those contacts are always very appreciated. And you can also reach out at info@giftameal.com as well with those contacts too.
Fantastic. Good to know. Very good to know. I said it was the last question, but it's not true.
Go for it. You have another.
Yes, because there is one that I always ask, and which is, what would you tell our members in the Just Action community, people that are also pursuing their own epic projects? What would you tell them as an advice? Just any advice that you would give to people that are pursuing a high impact type of social enterprise, and that are just, well, faced with the challenges that everyone faces. What would you tell them?
I would say going from idea stage to launching and getting product validation, it's really hard to get over that hurdle. And sometimes you want everything to be perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. Don't spend your time spending 2 years on the product to get it all perfect with all the bells and whistles. Just build a minimum viable product. So just the very core feature offering, get it out there and just do it and get it out there in as cheap and effective as a way as possible, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's not your ultimate vision, so you can start to get people using it and get feedback for what customers actually want versus what they say they want. So getting over that hump of having the idea to feeling like you have to build that perfect product, I would say just get something out there as quickly as possible. Start getting feedback from your customers on it. See what they want you to be building in order to meet what demand from the market actually is, and then just start that process of iterating and be okay with failure and rejection and take it in stride and take it as a learning experience. And just stay motivated by staying true to your vision and being willing to ask others for help, and just kind of get yourself going and don't spend too much time just percolating on the idea, but get something out there. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's better to know that sooner rather than later. And there also might be many pivots that end up making you more successful to achieve your vision. So just get it out there as quickly as possible and embrace the cycle of iteration.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That's very generous of you and very wise advice as well. And we're gonna definitely enjoy listening to this when I distribute it to my community in Just Action. So thank you so much for that contribution, and that in itself, I'm sure is going to create impact as well. So I appreciate you participating in this.